or AI becomes your ultimate growth partner? That's exactly what we are going to be talking about today. Welcome everyone to another Tech Social. My name is Gabby. I'm a business analyst here at Cogent. We have Ajay here with us, who is our cybersecurity director. The topic today is AI growth stack, automating sales, marketing, and everything in between with Rick Beckers, who is a CEO of Channel Sales Pro and a fractional chief revenue officer with more than 30 years of experience in SaaS, cloud, and cybersecurity areas. Thanks for being here, Rick. For everyone that is joining us today, you can ask questions. You can raise your hand. We can take your questions like that, or you can also leave them on the chat. Welcome again, everyone. And Ajay, over to you.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Rick. Yeah, I actually had the pleasure of meeting Rick in person. He attended one of our Chai and Business networking events, and I got to say he did a great job. Number one, number two, a lot of interest came out of that. So I'm thinking the same thing is going to happen here. So let me just start and turn over to Rick. And again, Rick, we keep these things kind of casual, you know. So there's specific things I can ask you some questions. You can sort of comment and then just take it from there.
Sure. Well, pleasure to be here for sure. Thanks for having me. I'm going to let you lead, but you let me know when you'd like to hear a little bit about where I come from and how we got here.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to give your background and then sort of I would say your history of, you know, when you started to where you're at with AI and those, that'd be great.
Yeah. So it's a long history. Starts off at a very unusual place, and that is that, you know, I've been in business automation my entire adult career. It started with something as simple and perhaps even unknown to some of your listeners, depending on their age group. But I was once upon a time a damn fine typewriter repairman. That was the only tool available, you know, to business automation at the time, because computers didn't exist. And I was a good repairman. I could type 110 words a minute, which meant I could work on the executives' typewriters, the executive secretaries' typewriters, and type as fast as they could. And why that was important is because when a machine would fail at high speeds, other technicians wouldn't be able to notice it because their test of a typewriter was to just type gibberish. I could type accurately and cause the machine to throw a wrong character and then find the root cause of it. But I mention that because, you know, again, that was the beginning of a curious mind working in business automation, and also the beginning of monthly recurring revenue, which is a common theme in technology these days, and SaaS and AI. You know, everybody's looking to make monthly recurring revenue through subscriptions, and I did it by having maintenance agreements with the big three around Michigan to maintain all their equipment. But, you know, of course, at some point in time, they got thrown in the dumpsters, the typewriters replaced by first electronic word processors and then computers. And that was the beginning of my computer career. Before networks even existed, before the internet existed, they were standalone devices. And the term back then for exchanging data between individuals and companies was called SneakerNet. SneakerNet was just taking a floppy disk and walking it over to somebody and giving it to them or mailing it to them and having them read that data. But so I've continued along that path. I'm a technical person, probably, you know, dozens and dozens of certifications over the years of every known topology and operating system that's ever been used in small, medium, and enterprise companies, architecting, deploying, and supporting computing technology of all kinds, keeping current, bleeding edge current, looking at the horizon at all times to see what's coming, taking great pride and passion in my ability to tell my clients what direction to take, you know, and what is coming at them so that they can make those decisions early on and incorporate them into planning and budgets, etc. I've owned a managed IT service provider company, what today is commonly called an MSP, ever since those days. I still own that company. I only keep a couple of clients around only because, they were loyal to me for decades. So I'm not going to orphan them and just drop the company. So it's a small thing, and very special customers still exist that we help with. But that company was one of the early adapters of a flat rate type business model. Instead of time and materials, we would charge X amount of dollars per device, and that was for unlimited service and support. And that model became the standard in the industry. I was picked by Informa back in 2013 as a result of that MSP model. They were trying to gain additional audience from their roots as telecom conferences to add additional attendees, and MSPs were their target. And so they chose me to help to write some of the content that attracted people to their shows, to see the vendors and the solutions and so on. And so I spent 5 years on their advisory board. And I won't get too long-winded here, but that 5 years gave me great insight into the entire supply chain of the industry, from the OEM vendors like your Microsofts and HP and VMware, et cetera, to the distribution layer. There's dozens of those around the country and the world, down to the trusted advisor, which is the person who has a relationship with a B2B customer and steers them, not unlike I have for years, as to where to go. And what I did in 2018 was analyze that supply chain and concluded that it was, even though we were a technology industry, it was far and away too analog. So I created a company with the specific intent of digitizing that supply chain, digitally transforming it. I became an evangelist for marketplaces early on, because it made sense to me that we should be able to consume technological, digital licensing, et cetera, anywhere, anytime. And so I've done that over the years. And that was done through my distribution company called XS1. And then you announced at the beginning here that I am CEO of Channel Sales Pro. Channel Sales Pro is the last company in my lineage, and it came about as referrals started coming my way. The abundance of SaaS and AI companies that were coming into the marketplace were coming in with great ideas. They had built better mousetraps, better ways to do things, but they lacked the network and or the sales and distribution skills to create the channel programs that would allow them to scale their companies. And so my colleagues around the industry started referring those people to me so that I could prepare those companies for the scaling that they were all looking for. So that would be something like a founder selling on their own, founder-led sales, taking them to like 3 to 5 million in annual recurring revenue, but then stalling there. And then they would come to me and I would create channel programs for them, automate their partner relationship management, their through channel marketing automation, and their marketplaces, et cetera, so that they could lather, rinse, repeat, and then scale with a smooth onboarding process. And that's where I'm at today. All of that journey, as I said, I keep current. And so I am a current user in the AI experience, and I apply that to my clients and share my thoughts and ideas with others as to how they can automate their businesses and scale their revenue. Long-winded explanation, but that's who I am.
No, that's perfect. And I actually want to ask you, like, to jump into the AI topic, because these days I feel like every tool will promise companies like a supercharged growth with AI, right? Like,
Yeah.
but when it comes to like actual implementation, the hype normally doesn't always match the results. So I want to ask you, like, with all the experience that you have had during all these years, what's a real world example you have seen where AI truly transformed a sales or marketing process with good results?
Well, there's a lot of them, and it depends on, the size of the business and the type of business that they're in. The AI solutions that I find effective for small businesses is quite different than those that are effective for middle-sized businesses, and even more so for enterprise businesses, because there's different factors in each one of those types of companies. And then you look across different verticals, and they all have different requirements and needs, including security and compliance issues, regulatory issues, etc. But my philosophy is that you should be using AI to automate 80% of any workflow process, with the specific intent of leaving the 20% to the human. And hopefully by automating and creating those efficiencies, you have now more time for the face-to-face human interaction and bonding that takes place, because people still do like to buy from people they like, and they do still like that human interaction. But to answer your question, I mean, it can be simple things. I'll give you an example. LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn right now, right? Most business people use LinkedIn as actively or more actively than any of the social media platforms. It is the professional platform, right? And we all strive for as many followers as we can get. And that's great for cold, random, outbound sales and drilling down into personas, using our KPIs to find, what might be a perfect prospect for us. But I think a better use of LinkedIn is to use those relationships to help others. Yeah. Well, how do you do that? For example, I have, 8,000, 9,000 followers on LinkedIn. Some of my colleagues have 20, 50, but I meet you, for instance, and I listen to your story, and you tell me what would be a home run for you in terms of a referral that I might make to you. And now I'm looking at 8,000 contacts on LinkedIn. Do I remember all those 8,000? No. Do I maybe know 1% of them well enough that I could pick off the top, a couple of relationships that I might introduce you into? Yeah, that's probably what my human mind will allow me to do. Well, we wrote an app that allows us to use AI to drill down into those 8,000 contacts of mine and match them up against your profile persona and your home run explanation of what you want. And the AI, I can tell it, give me the top 3, give me the top 5 referrals for Gabby, and then explain why. And the tool that we created allows us to do that. And that, to me, allows me to mine nuggets for you, right? I'm a firm believer that givers gain. And one thing I don't like at all is to be what I call pitch slapped. That is, somebody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, and there seems to be some synergy, and so I allow it. And the first thing that person does is send me a cold, hey, I do this. Would you like to buy some? Without creating any kind of relationship or anything else. So by utilizing my philosophy of giver's gain, I can drill down and give you some valuable introductions, and then make those introductions in a human way. I could start it off with just a simple email and introduction, but I could also set up a meeting, not unlike this Zoom call, where I actually make an introduction to that person, put the two of you together and explain to you why I've done it, as though we're sitting and having lunch. And that is a much more valuable, warm introduction than any type of digital introduction that you might get. To me, that's a great use of an AI tool, that I have not seen another one like it. But we developed that in 20 minutes with AI, just from an idea.
Wow. One of the things, it sounds like, on a basic level, Rick, that, things like data analysis, maybe, trend analysis, maybe you could talk about that, because that sounds like more basic. And then when you get into the, interpersonal stuff, that's where you make that connection, right? I think that's kind of where you're driving at. If you could explain a little bit on how maybe some of the folks, some tips on that. And to be quite frank with you, if you found any good tools out there that they've used, on a real basic level for sales and marketing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, every person involved in sales of any kind or in a business of any kind should know what their key performance indices are, your KPIs, right? It's a common acronym that you hear in sales and marketing all the time. And a layman's terms explanation of KPIs are what are the things that you look for in your best client or your best prospect? Is it their annual revenue of X? Is it a number of employees that are this? Did they go to this school? Are they in this geographic area? Are they in this industry? All of these types of things. You develop those KPIs so that you can start looking at and mining data to find the relationships that are most prosperous to you, right? And you do that for your ICPs, your ideal customer profiles, and your IPPs, your ideal partner profiles. The ICPs obviously are your direct customers. Even if you're in a channel only sales model, you still need to know who the ICPs are so that you can make your partners aware of what to look for, what to listen for in their prospects and in their customers. But having KPIs and knowing them is essential. And you can use, of course, AI to mine various data sources like LinkedIn. There are tools out there that have been doing this for a long time. ZoomInfo, Seamless AI, Seamless.ai. And of course, LinkedIn has a tool to do it, but it's not as granular as I would like anyway. I ran across, and there are a lot of these popping out in the marketplace, but I ran across one in particular called Jiva, JEEVA.ai. Jiva professes that they create virtual assistants for BDR and other sales cycle tasks, but they do this and they have a language model, a large language model that allows them to drill down and get data that many of these others are not. And I'll give you an example. In the telecom industry, these telecom carriers like AT&T and Lumen and Optimum, et cetera, they're building fiber networks, or they have coaxial networks, whatever their network is, they build it out, and they do so, hopefully in an area where it's densely populated, because then their customer acquisition cost is lower. But at the end of the day, all they really know is the addresses that they pass by, just an address. And they'll give their partners, including me, they give X's one hundreds of thousands of addresses. But in the past, I mean, data enriching those addresses to mean anything to a partner that would require, who is the current tenant at that address? Because people obviously move in and move out of buildings all the time. It's an ongoing process. And so data enrichment in the past has been based on older databases, which is why many of your lists are, mostly junk by the time you get them into any kind of marketing tool to do any outbound. So you need and you want that data to be current, right? And then aside from knowing what the tenant or who the tenant is from a business perspective, you also want to know who are the current contacts in that particular business at this moment in time with this title. And you want to be able to reach out to them at multiple points, email, SMS, what have you. And Jiva had the extraordinary capability of taking these addresses, pumping them into their system, and then at the click of a button, convert and provide mind-blowing contact information, at the click of a mouse. And that became invaluable for us as a distribution company. And we would take that list and then we would start calling on those customers to warm them up, right? Our partners, most everybody's partners, don't want just a cold lead. They can buy lists wherever. That's their thought. That's their mindset. But if you give me a warm lead of somebody that I know has intent, well, that's something that, most salespeople are going to jump all over. And so we used AI, in some cases, conversational AI, to reach out to these prospects. And all we were looking for was a yes. We would advise them that there's a new carrier that's passing your building. In order to make an informed decision about the usage of the internet and telephony in your company, you might be interested in accepting a quote from Lumen. Will you accept a quote from Lumen? And if they say yes, then they've opted in. We've warmed up that lead. It goes into a CRM. The CRM flips it from a lead to a marketing qualified lead. And then that report now becomes a list of contacts, warm contacts that can be given to partners. And the success rate is much higher than anything we've done in the past. And it's a long explanation, but you wanted an example. Jiva's an example of a company that's using AI to do things that were not possible in the past.
Definitely. And you've worked, I know, with like growing companies. What is a mistake you see businesses make when they try to implement AI on their stack too fast? And how do you recommend phasing out automation and the starting point?
Well, it's like any new technology being deployed in a business. I always recommend walk, trot, run, right? In terms of the speed of implementing any technology, because technology does bring about efficiencies, but technology also can bring about an administrative burden that you may not have expected. And what I'm talking about there is, with the advent of websites years ago, everybody wanted a website, everybody needed a website, everybody built a website. But then you realize that now I have this ongoing administration. I have to continue to maintain my website. And if I want to compete against my competitors on my website, now I need to add the burden of administering my SEO and keeping my blog up to date and all of these other administrative tasks. And if you're not ready from a revenue perspective, a budgetary perspective, to assume those administrative burdens, then you're in trouble. You can get locked up. So you have to look at it pretty deeply to know whether or not the enhancements and the efficiencies that are going to come out of the use of AI in your business are actually going to, if you're ready for it, if the time is right. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And I want to know a little bit more about like your particular role. Whenever you are creating any product, what do you do? How does your day look like when you are part of this team?
Well, I'm a hired gun. right? So all that experience that I explained gives me a unique insight into not just one area of a supply chain, but all of the different stakeholders. If I don't own a company that specifically has a role as that stakeholder, in the tech industry, I do, because I've got a trusted advisor, excuse me, in my MSP. I've got a distributor in my XS1 company, and I've got a relationship with hundreds of vendors. If my role is as a hired gun to go in and analyze people's businesses and determine who their partners are, determine what the needs of those partners are bidirectionally, right? And make sure that we can automate, 80% of the workflow tasks that are happening, and make sure that it happens seamlessly so that each one of the stakeholders can get the information that they desire in order to be most effective right at the right time, right? And so I do a lot of deep dive analytics, into a company from a financial perspective, from a sales perspective, from a marketing audit perspective, relationship perspective, all of those things. And I use AI whenever possible to collect the data, and not just on them, but on their competitors, so that I know how to boost them up so that they're, a head taller than those that they're going up against.
Right. Sounds great. So what is like one part of sales or marketing that you believe will be like completely reimagined by AI?
Reimagined. Oh, I got one. I mean, the steps that we all go through in terms of a sale, right? And number one, sales and marketing have to be aligned. So you have to have that well thought out in advance so that everybody in your organization is talking the same talk and walking the same walk, and so on. What I'm seeing is that's most appealing to me at this point in time has to do with customer experience.
Okay.
And that really should be top of mind for anybody as they're implementing any back office system that's going to help to automate their business. Is what is the customer experience? Are you adding an additional value proposition to that customer, or making their experience easier for them to consume what it is that you want them to consume, what you want to sell them? And in the last week, I was at the beginning here, I was telling AJ that since I spoke to the Chai group, this has happened. I'm now representing a company that has taken AI and taken the typical chat bot that we've all become used to and comfortable with, that sits on a website that you can interact with initially while you're doing your due diligence and discovery and research on a company or a product, right? You're thinking about engaging, you're starting to show intent, and you use these chat bots, but they're just that. They're chat bots. There's no human interaction. What has been developed in the last week is a bot. I won't even call it a chat bot, because to me a chat bot is textual, right? But an AI bot that gives you the ability to not just pull from a large language model to give feedback to the customer to their inquiries, but you can embed this bot in a document, in a post, in a website, literally anywhere that you can have, in a QR code, on a telephone pole, on a Times Square sign, all right, where just by clicking on the QR code, you are given the ability to immediately engage a live human. So you can escalate your chats now to a live human experience at the moment that you want to have that engagement. So you get to pick and choose now. You can use the AI bot to just simply retrieve sales enablement materials if that's what you're into. I just want some PDFs. I want to consume those offline, get a little bit more knowledgeable about what it is that I'm researching, and I can do that. I can ask questions of the bot and anonymously, get that information and kind of still stay standoffish. I haven't quite made my decision yet. But there are actually 10 different forms of or types of engagement that you can do in this new AI bot. And the one that's most thrilling to me is the ability to just click and say, okay, right now, this moment, I want to talk to a live person in a two-way conversation like a Zoom call, and it will go right to the call center or the account executive or the person that you've associated with that AI bot, so that you can potentially engage in an actual sale. You can actually consume
and how's
that
that
way.
working for you? Have you actually started using it and looking at it? And
Well, I'm definitely looking at it.
Yeah.
We have not engaged it. It's not the first time that I've seen this. I've had a customer in the past, actually 2 years ago, that had the live operator capability on a bot, but it was nothing more than a link, to a person who had a private chat capability. Now, but this new AI bot has everything that you might need in the sales and marketing process that would be exchanged in between the consumer and the reseller, right there and available. And it's not just, and again, it's not just the website, because that's pretty common. It's being able to embed this in a document. So you can send somebody a PDF and they are reading it and they can click on a link in that PDF and instantly go to a live conversation.
Interesting.
If they have printed materials, leave behinds, that they can take their phone out and hit a QR code and instantly be in a conversation with the person.
That's interesting. I always wondered, so it looks like the whole sales dynamics is going to be changing, right? I mean, we're going to be having more of the automation that I see. So what happens to the people, and this is just something to throw out there, what can people listening to this sort of prepare themselves for, right? So there's this thing called, okay, how do we become more educated? So while we're, engaging with these bots, can we research? Can we, you know what I mean? In other words, we want to become more intelligent as well, right? Because
You're right.
the more we know, right, the better we use these tools. Do you have any recommendations on, on that side?
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we actually engage in, educating any one of or all of the stakeholders in the supply chain.
Okay.
The tool is so new that obviously I don't even have a learning management system that allows me to do that. It's just here, and I know enough about it that I can talk to it. I can't even demo it to you at this moment in time. It'll be a couple more weeks before we're able to do that. But it would be the various stakeholders in the supply chain who are going to want to educate their partners, and their partners are and
Sure.
include the consumers, right?
Yeah.
Again,
Sure,
I
absolutely.
describe it as the vendors, distributors, the trusted advisor, resellers, but
Right.
then also their B2B customers or their B2C customers have to be
Sure.
considered a stakeholder in that supply chain. And it is up to everybody in that supply chain to cooperatively lift each other up by education. And so as these new tools pop out, I would fully expect that I'll be doing training sessions,
Wow.
to let people know that this is available and this is how you use it to get the most out of it.
Well, it sounds pretty exciting. I think we're also, this is my opinion on it, where it becomes more of a collaborative session to try and market and sell, right? So a lot of the times I've seen people don't want to be sold, they want to listen. And
Yeah.
more, you're cut from the same cloth as I'm. It's more evangelization, right? And feeding
Yes.
them the information, getting them that so they can make the right decisions and see if they're qualified, to be frank with you, right? When you're working with that group. That's how I see this thing evolving. And so that tool, I'd be interested in when you get your hands around it, maybe come back and talk a little bit about what you found and the value
Yeah.
in it. That'd be great.
Happy to. I mean, I'm sure we've all heard the cliche, an intelligent buyer is your best customer, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
educating them, you and I don't sell. We've been selling, of course, for decades,
Right.
but we don't sell. We educate
Yeah.
and we consult and we explain until the customer comes to a realization on their own that this
Sure.
is something I need. And you and I operate on return on investment, total cost of ownership, and all sorts of different acronyms that are there to show, the justification and for the customer to feel as though they've been informed of all of the different things that they need to in order to make an informed decision. And that's when they engage.
Yeah. And I think to your point, Rick, when they do that, they feel more in tune with you have a better relationship with that person as well, right? Versus trying to just spew out a bunch of stuff and those kinds of things. I think you almost have to do that these days because I'll tell you, it's like you said earlier, it's a very competitive market out there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's
Trust.
all types of, the trust, and I think that's how you achieve that.
Yep.
I know we're
I agree.
bumping up against that 12:40 right now. I wanted to see if we could maybe, Gabby, open it up for questions, or Rick, do you have any, thing else that you'd like to throw out there? Don't know who's has anything or if anybody wants to ask anything.
In lieu of other questions, I will go on to say the one thing that is not being thought of enough in the deployment of AI is the security.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got to remember that AI is it's a data sponge.
Yeah.
It's going to go and grab the data wherever it can grab the data. And if you haven't put up boundaries to keep it from grabbing the data, it's going to grab some data that you don't necessarily want it to. And so then any of the outputs that it works with or puts out there are going to be skewed, or you might end up in a plagiarization scenario or compliance or regulatory litigation or anything else. And then the reverse is also true. And I'll use the research universities as an example, but they're researching stuff, right, that isn't necessarily known to other people. And if that isn't done in such a way that there are boundaries from keeping their AI research bots going out into the public and getting that information, once they cross their own boundaries outside of their own large language models, those tentacles don't go away. You can't just retract those, right? So be conscious in the mid to enterprise space that security it's paramount, has to be considered in anything that you deploy from an AI perspective.
And I think you're right. A lot of it's intellectual property, right? Which is, invaluable. And the other thing is data privacy, right? You give up a little bit of that data privacy out there. So yeah, it's great to be able to chat and stuff. But then if you're on the receiving side, and like you said, documents get out there that are sensitive and you don't really realize it until it's late. You're right. You can't. So probably the rule is if you're going to use this stuff, be careful what you throw out there or ask for because it's not yours.
Right.
Somebody else owns it at that point. So
even market research of that, hey, I got a great new idea, hit the keyboard, and now you send AI out there to start doing research for you. Well, guess what? You just opened Pandora's box somebody out there now knows that you're looking.
Right. So,
All right,
that's
so it's
great.
almost time. I
Thank you.
know we have to wrap it up today at 12:45. Thank you so much, Rick. Rick, I feel like there's an opportunity to bring you back on a topic for AI and cybersecurity that we couldn't, talk about enough today. So we'll keep in touch for the upcoming months. If you are up to it, we'll definitely love to bring you back. Thank you so much for all the insights. Thank you, Ajay. Any closing comments from any of you two?
For me, as though it probably seems that technology is all I talk about. It is not. The technology is a tool. The human, one-on-one relationship is the key to everything that we do. Using technology for the improvement of humanity is the way that it should be, whether it's one individual or many. And so that's my 2 cents.
Great.
Agree.
Thank you so much. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Rick.
everyone,
Thank you,
for
Gabby.
joining us today. We'll be back next Thursday for another episode. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Ajay. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, AJ. Take care.
Yep. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. How do you think
Thank
that
you
went?
so much. It was great. Thank you. Sadly, yeah, we had to wrap it up 15 minutes before, but I'm sure it will be great if you have time to come back for another episode, Rick.
Yeah, and actually I have a new client that I'm onboarding right now that speaks specifically to that security posture in AI. So I'll have lots of information.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I'll keep in touch with you on LinkedIn, definitely. Let's talk about let's talk about this, come up with a topic, and we can meet again July, August, whenever you're available.
All right, sounds good. Thanks,
All
Gabby.
right. Thank you
You
so
take care.
much. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.